My mind is set, my grind is set, my heart on ice cold. I'm only here to even a score. Whoa. My mind is set, my grind is set, my heart on ice cold. We down right now, but did it before. Whoa. See from here we going up. Made the call, I shown up. Now the game is sewn up. Say my name is blown up. We up, 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 we up. See from here we going up. Made the call, I shown up. Now the game is sewn up. Say my name is blown up. We up, 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 we up.
What up, Night Nation, and welcome to another episode of The Nighted Ones. In fact, this is episode number 117. As a reminder, we are the only podcast that features a former UCF national champion, a former UCF radio host, an ESPN analyst, oh man, I'm out of practice, and hoops player, an infamous rapper, our resident influencer and IG star, shooting the breeze, talking UCF sports. Remember to like and follow us on YouTube, IG, X, and the 70 plus teams and conferences on the College Huddle. This week, we've been a little doom and gloom lately, but this week we had lots of good news. As we suspected, the portal is popping, so we'll talk about those players that stayed, those players that are coming, and we got our new QB1, so we'll talk about that a little bit. We'll also talk a little UCF hoops. Hoops is doing it big. Number 25 in the country as of today, at least in one poll, and receiving just outside number 26 in the other. So that's exciting stuff. The big win against Kansas, another court to be stormed. And what was interesting this time, if you notice, there was a whole lot of security for everybody else, but the students did get to rush the court. So that was exciting. So we'll talk a little bit about that and what it means for the future, because this hoops team is on fire. All right, without further ado, let's go ahead and bring the crew to the stage. Allen will be joining us in a bit. First to the stage, someone you should all know, a national champion, Trey Neal.
Gentlemen, what's up, man? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I hope you had a good holiday, and 2026 is going to be a big one for you and for UCL. Yeah. So super excited for that.
Man, excited.
All right. Last but not least, because Allen decided to show up late to the stage, but always last, Josh Lazar. Welcome back, Josh, to the show. It's been a hot minute. You've been all over the country, and you've got your AC fixed, so I think we're ready to go.
Yeah, I missed all of the cold temperatures down here in Orlando, and my fuse popped on my heater while I was up north, even colder than it was in Orlando. It snowed about 5 of the 7 days I was out of the state. Yeah, I liked it. I didn't like when it started icing. That's no bueno. But yeah, it's been really good. I'm excited to be back. I flew back in for the Kansas game, and I'm happy that I did. And lots to talk about, so it's great.
Yep, your score prediction did pretty well. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the listener love section. But to our surprise, Allen decided to be last but not least, but he's last. Allen Levitt, welcome to the show, bro.
Hey, how's it going? Sorry, I'm a little late here.
Yeah, good to see you. Let's go ahead and get that patented hair flip going. There it is. All right. As a reminder, once we hit 1,000, that is 1,000 followers, Allen will be cutting his hair live on the show. So super excited about that. Yeah, we're doing it live. We're doing it live. Weasel out of it. So super excited, but you are going to steal the show, or at least for the first part about it. Lots of news that happened. We've got our wide receiver that we've been talking about for quite a bit. We were waiting, but it wasn't official till it was official, but it was official. We just didn't know it. Announced in a bowl game. So a new wide receiver, 4-star wide receiver for us. And then some surprise folks that are coming back from the portal, some folks that went to the portal who might be coming back. And then some new folks that came into portal, including our QB1. So if you could start us off by starting us off with all the good as it pertains to UCF football.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about this week with not only people that put their name in the portal and then ultimately decided to withdraw their name, but also high school recruit that we landed to finish out the class. And then obviously landing transfers that now that the transfer window is officially open and schools can contact kids and, officially sign them. So I guess we can start with the good. So let's start with the inbound transfers. So we all know we needed a quarterback. There was only one returning quarterback as of now, which was Davy Belfort that's on the roster. So quarterback was clearly the number one need. And UCF went out and got a really, really solid big name that was just playing in the college football playoff, and that's Alonzo Barnett. The third, he is from James Madison. Obviously, they were just in the playoffs. They got beat up pretty badly, but nonetheless, they were, I think, a 12-1 team. This is a guy that's, been a playmaker throughout his career at James Madison, dual threat guy. So pretty much UCF went out on the first day that the portals open and got their guy. They didn't, dilly-dally, didn't wait for, guys who were going to visit, 3, 4, 5 schools before making a decision, which would kind of, prevent them from maybe getting some other guys. But at the end of the day, they got an experienced kid that's played, 3, 4 years now at James Madison, 22 years old. So, he's a veteran. Overall, he's thrown for 5,400 yards in his career, 49 touchdowns to just 13 interceptions. And like I said, he's dual threat. So he's ran out for over 1,000 yards in his career and also has 23 touchdowns on the ground. Last year, he had a career high 15 touchdowns on the ground, 589 yards, and threw for 23 touchdowns and 8 picks, while the Dukes went 12-2 and made the playoffs. And he was also the Sun Belt Conference Player of the Year. So this is a guy, whether you don't like going into the G5 or G6 and getting a guy or not, this guy is proven. He's played well. He's in shape, unlike KJ Jefferson. So we got that going for us. Proven player, guy that has done it at a high level for a very good program. I mean, James Madison made the playoffs this year. They've been pretty damn good since they've made the jump from FCS to FBS.
Hold on. Allen, we are a clean show, remember?
Oh, is DAMN not allowed?
Yeah, unless you're saying DAM, in which case I will allow it. But
I did. That's what I meant.
Kind of a couple things I want to join in there on the JMU program thing.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to gloss over that. They actually have the number one NIL budget in the G5 right now.
Makes sense.
They also have the highest student fee in the entire G5 as well. So between JMU and ODU, those two are, there's a reason they were able to move up, and that was a big reason for it. And I kind of add on to your point about who he is. I think the biggest thing for me is he's a bigger quarterback. He's 6 foot, 217 pounds, so not very tall, but he's robust. And the big thing that I want to see out of all of this is the ability to have someone who can actually stay most of the season, because, obviously the next thing we'll talk about is O-line, but that's been the biggest bugaboo. I mean, last season we had 4 quarterbacks start.
That's right. 2 seasons in a row now.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, right? So we've got to have someone with some staying power. And like you said, he does have some wheels, so he is mobile. So, behind last year's line, he definitely need it, but it'll be interesting to see what we do with this year. Any other notes on him? He spins a pretty good ball from what I saw. And he's pretty balanced as far as his offensive attack is as well.
Yeah, I think, just coming out of high school, I watched some tape. I mean, obviously, like I said, he's definitely got wheels. He's good in the pocket too. UCF, obviously, it was George O'Leary's quote, "There's never a bad highlight tape," but they released a highlight tape and from some key plays from this past season, looked really good, poised in the pocket. He just, I think, maybe was a little undersized coming out of high school. I think he was only 5'11" his senior year of high school. Now he's like whatever it is, 6 foot, 6'1". So it was a little bit underrated. He did have mostly G5 offers, got Georgia State, Army, Charlotte, Miami of Ohio, schools like that. But has proven it at this level, or at a pretty high level for a very good program. So I think, being the budget that we have and getting it, the deal done on the very first day, with our guy, and not having to deal with, kids flipping and all this other stuff was a huge win for us.
You can tell me what you want. We were talking to him before.
Oh, no, I know, but I'm just saying
like,
to get it done right away. Obviously, we were talking to him before, but I mean, it's just nice to have that secured so early on in the official portal season.
yeah, unlike the last few years where we've had guys come for basketball games and then not end up.
Grayson McCall.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, no, I like his size. I like his playing style. If he's listed as 6 foot tall on here or 6'1", that means he's actually 5'11". So I don't think he grew an inch. I think he's actually 5'11". Trey can speak to that.
217 though.
Yeah, 217. So he's sturdy. That's why I was like, he's got broad shoulders. He can take a lick, and I like the fact that when he runs with authority. He's not a small guy. He's not JRP either, which is a run first like mentality, which was about the same size. He can spin the ball pretty accurately. And what I like when I did go back and look at his highlight tape was he read the defenses pretty well. He read them fast and he read them pretty well. And, the offense is a little bit different that he was running at JMU, but it was run heavy, which will play well into what we're doing. And so for me, I think this is a good pickup. He is one of the higher rated quarterbacks that was coming into the transfer portal. Obviously, Sorsby from Cincinnati went to Texas Tech. I still think they overpaid. Supposedly $5 million is what they paid for Sorsby, and based on his performance, what I saw when we played him last year, that's not a $5 million quarterback. And certainly, I don't even think it was the number one quarterback. But as Econ says here, he plays fast and he's a winner. And that's the biggest thing, right? Is just winning mentality and bringing a quarterback like that. I mean, last year we had, some quarterbacks in here that were journeymen. And so they weren't the starter. They weren't the winning quarterback. And there is something to be said for that. I mean, part of KZ's allure and to the rest of the team, and Trey can talk about this, is just his confidence level in the huddle and saying, hey, we're going to go out there and do that and score this. So how important was that to your 2017 teams, Trey?
Yeah, I mean, confidence is everything, just especially in the sport. And now in this day and age where it's a quarterback-driven league, as you see why Sorsby got $5 million.
I don't see why you got $5 million.
The money they give is like you can't really count them. They're operating under a different type of world. I don't think any quarterback in college football is worth $5 million.
No,
let alone Sorsby. And I think he's good. I just don't see $5 million. But confidence is everything. It's why we were able to turn around what we had. I mean, we had a lot of the same players. We just weren't confident. We lost a lot of games. We got confidence. We won a lot of games. And I think, again, it starts with the engine, which at the time was Mackenzie Milton on offense and then Shaquem on defense, and that kind of flows down through the rest of the team. So I think getting a guy who has played in the college football playoff, who comes from a place where it might not be, Power 4, but he's used to winning. You never lose that. I think that's good, especially for a team that we need that consistency. I think the best thing that could happen next year, if I could ask for anything, it's to have the same quarterback all season. I might even really care. Of course, I want to win, but I just want to see what our offense would look like with this same guy orchestrating it. So I think it's off to a good start. I think he's a good player. Like you said, it's probably 5'11". But again, he's a thicker build, so we'll see. I think his highlights, like you said, his highlights are great, but he's confident. He plays with that confidence, and you can see it while he's playing. So I think that's the step in the right direction.
The interesting thing for me from when you look at his career stats, right? So his 2024 season, his average was 7.3. 2025 was 7.6 per attempt, right? So you anything from 7 to 10 is really what you're looking for someone who can consistently pass the ball, not just mid-range. He picked up a few more interceptions, so his TD to interception ratio was a little worse. This year, 23 TDs to 8 interceptions, but if it's 8 interceptions to 23 TDs passing, I can deal with that because that doesn't include, the TDs that he had with his legs. So, for me, 58.4% completion percentage, so right around 60%. So still good enough. And for a running quarterback, that's what that is. I just think he has a better arm. He can read defenses better, than someone like a JRP. And I think he'll flourish in this offense because it's not as run heavy as what Malzahn's was. So I think JRP was a better quarterback than we gave him credit for. But the big thing that's going to be a key to his success now is the offensive line. And so now that we've got our QB1 locked down, what do we? What Allen? What do we have on tap for O-line, man?
In terms of the transfers that we got?
Yeah, I know we only have one. I think it's that Connecticut transfer. So
we got
far.
two. We got the Michigan State and then the UConn transfer. So Cooper Terpstra announced his transfer from Michigan State to UCF, and then Brady Wayburn is the UConn O-line transfer. So we have landed two O-line transfers, but I mean, that's going to be nowhere near enough. We're going to have to get more. I mean, essentially, most of our O-line either graduated or transferred. As of now, the only one that's, quote unquote, re-signed, at least that's officially announced it, is Connor Meadows, who played sparingly this past year. I mean, there's other ones that have, which we'll talk about, haven't announced one way or the other if they're staying or leaving. I guess, a lot of them are depth pieces. So I guess you can probably safely assume they're just coming back if they haven't said anything by now. But I mean, the O-line got decimated by the portal and graduation. So I would assume there's going to be 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe more O-linemen on tap. But so far we have landed two, Cooper Terpstra from Michigan State and Brady Wayburn from UConn. So Terpstra was, a backup at Michigan State. Played somewhat sparingly. He's a junior, but 6'4", 265 pounds. Also kind of a lightly recruited kid out of high school. Was considered a 2-star on 247. All of his offers were essentially FCS or Division II, and I think he walked on to Michigan State ultimately and played somewhat sparingly. So this is somewhat reminiscent of some of the pieces we've gotten in recent years. Backup guys that have played sparingly at other Power 5 schools, but we'll see. It's a starting point because we're going to need a lot of depth on O-line because there's just not that many bodies there right now.
Well, and Frost said himself there were several who got asked not to come back, right? So it wasn't just us to other people. It was, folks not coming back this year because they weren't invited back. They did their postseason conversation and like, hey, yeah, you're not going to get anywhere. So, offensive line, we need a lot more pieces. And, we're putting some other pieces. We had some wide receivers already in the stable that stayed, and we'll talk about those in a bit. We added a new 4-star freshman wide receiver, names like Day Farmer. We're waiting for them this year. So we've got a lot of weapons, I think, that we're starting to put around the QB, but we've got to have an O-line that's going to keep him upright, or it's going to be a long season. So that's the biggest area of need I'm going to see. What I've been seeing out of our portal strategy has been picking up those guys that are depth pieces first, and then making sure you're getting the depth pieces that you want, and then turning around and focusing and then competing for those higher end pieces. But I think everybody knows QB1 was highest priority. And, I guess this kind of explains the Marriott kind of conversation, because a lot of people were saying, hey, when it comes to Marriott, we think that he might start as a freshman, and there's plenty of other schools that are doing it, and should we do that? But I really feel this is a 1-year purchase, for lack of a better term. And I think it's smart to have someone in the huddle that is experienced, that can come in here and play that way, and has played at that level, to let guys like Marriott and Archer learn. So that's my thought behind it.
Yeah, it's the right move for sure. A 1 year rental, like you said, guy that can, make us good for a year. But I wanted to actually, I think was an econ advisor in the comments did make a point that the Michigan State lineman did end up starting a game. It was the last game of the year, so he does have some experience. But Brady Wayburn, the other O lineman they got, I think he's committed but not officially signed yet. But he is committed. He has played a pretty extensive amount. He played in 19 games over the past 2 years at guard, and he made 9 starts in the past 2 seasons. So he's played a good amount. I mean, yes, it was for UConn, but played well. Obviously, to start 9 games, and he's redshirt sophomore, so he's got a nice amount of eligibility left, and he's 6'5", 300 pounds. So it's a pretty big dude and has experience. So I think this was actually a decent pickup for UCF.
Yeah, and the other thing is we've got Blazek in now, and I think we were a little late to the game with all of that as far as evaluation and everything else. But Blazek's known for being the type of coach who can coach people up. So I think that's a good thing. But I'm a little concerned that with him coming in so late, that we may be behind the 8 ball a little bit on the O-line recruiting.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see how it goes there. Anyone else have any thoughts on the O-line, or do you want me to move on to the DBs?
Well, the only thing I was going to say is that the O-line that Scott Frost wanted in the past is different than what, well, I wouldn't say different, but a little different than what everyone else seemed to want. They were moving more. They were a little bit faster. And so, yeah, I think we'd like to have like 7 or 8 people at O-line, and we're like, yes, we're ready, we're set. And they come in for spring, but the reality is we're not. And my only hope is, other than getting the people we want to get, the offensive line and the prototype of what he needs for the quarterback we now have, because now we know who the quarterback is, maybe it isn't as bad, if you will, that we weren't like on this earlier, quote unquote. So I'm hoping that's a piece of that puzzle, but the trenches are going to be a big deal for everyone, whether you are and are. We need to have some relative depth, and then we might talk about that in the defensive line in a little bit. But that's the reality. I think, and Trey, let me know if I'm wrong. If I remember correctly, the Frost offensive linemen are a little bit faster because they do a lot more pulling, and they're a lot more active than
more space.
Yeah, a little bit different.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, Jordan Johnson, Wyatt Miller, Aaron Evans, like, they're big guys. I'm not saying, granted, let me rephrase. These guys are 6'6", 300-pound guys, but they're not like what people think like Alabama in the past, where they're 6'7", 350. Like, they're not maulers. They're a lot more athletic. They move very well in space. They might not just move guys and displace them 5 yards right in front of them, but they operate well in space. They move well and things like that. So that's kind of what Frost, he's always kind of wanted for that. Even at Nebraska, they were bigger, but he still wanted them to be athletic. Like, he didn't just want guys who could only work in a phone booth. He wanted guys that can get out and run a little bit. And I think, even being in LA with McVay, that's similar to what he does. That's just the offense that he likes to run. So you get the O-line that fits it. So hopefully we can. I think that's what we need. I was preaching that the most on the offense. We can't do anything if we can't move guys, and if we can't get birds on the ground.
And that's the thing, right? So a lot of zone schemes and a lot of moving the O-line to the second level, right? That's the whole reestablishing the O-line, not sticking around where you are and just giving the quarterback time, but really shedding what they're doing, getting their zone, and then moving the line to the line of scrimmage. That's what they're or not past the line of scrimmage to the secondary level, right? So that's what he's trying to accomplish with his scheme. Now, it'll be interesting to see how that changes, because we didn't see his full scheme last year. He said it himself. I think he saw about 25% of what this offense is going to look like. So it'll be interesting to see if that will be similar, or if he starts with other types of O linemen that he's looking to bring in and target for this offensive scheme.
Get those DBs.
All right, hit them.
All right, cool. So first DB we got, the most recent announcement was Caleb Flagg. Comes in from Mizzou, so an SEC product, junior. Started out his career at the FCS level at Houston Christian, who formerly is called Houston Baptist, but now they're Houston Christian. Played there for 2 years, 21 career games there, 7 starts, pretty solid career, posted 101 tackles, 3 tackles for a loss, and 2 interceptions and 11 pass breakups in his time with the Huskies there. Then with Mizzou, his first season there in 24, he played in 11 games. It was definitely more of a depth backup piece, but did get 20 tackles, a forced fumble. So, saw the field. And then last year, really just played in 3 games. I don't know if injuries were a concern or if anything happened there. It just seems like he was more so buried on the depth chart. He played against, in the early schedule against the Louisianas and Central Arkansas of the world, didn't really see time in the SEC conference schedule. So, again, probably a depth piece, 5'10", 192 pounds, originally from Houston. So I think, decent backup piece. Obviously we did lose a ton of DBs again in the portal, then graduation, actually probably even more so than the portal this year. A lot of big names graduated. So I think it was a solid pickup, but obviously a depth piece.
Yeah, solid 3-star coming out of high school. I think his height may have hurt him a little bit because he's 5'9", $180, right?
Yeah.
And it's a safety position. So I would look for him to be more on, he's going to be covering the slot and maybe coming downhill every once in a while at that 5'9", 180. He's not going to be out there trying to cover, the taller wide receivers in the Big 12. So he was an 87, rated an 87 on 3, and then 247 had him as an 85. So solid 3-star pickup for safety. Trey, what were you? You were a 3-star, right?
Yep.
What were you rated? Do you remember?
84, 85. I don't know.
Yeah, you turned out pretty terrible.
Yeah, that was all right. That was all right. But I think Grinch is, I think just defensively, he did it last year, bringing in guys that are experienced and can make plays. I think that's the, with what he wants to do. A lot of communication. We saw it last year with just how much they move in the back end and they rotate and shift. I think, the older guys tend to adapt to that better. Obviously a year in the system for young guys.
On. I just looked you up. Oh my goodness. You were an 82.72, dude.
There you go.
247 had you an 86. They were nicer. ESPN had you as a 74.
There you go, man.
Freaking ESPN.
Rivals originally had you as a 2-star prospect.
See, man, that's just how it is, man. It's just all
and
about.
You ended up a natty champion. How about that?
That's what they tell me. So, hey, I think I turned out pretty well. But a lot of that, when I was in high school, I didn't really care about ratings. I just cared about what offers I could get. So that to me told me, how good of a football player I was or could be. So you can rate me a 0-star. It didn't really matter to me.
Man, we should have brought Econ on the show this week. He's on fire right now in the comments, man. He's spitting fast.
Yeah, he's going off.
Yeah, I think what Allen's saying is, guy that's played 4 years in a couple of different systems, maybe more depending on how coaching was. I think to be able to do that, you have to be scheme versatile. And I think that's what they want on defense. They want guys to just be smart football players and be able to do it, at least at safety. That's what it looks like to me. They move a lot. They communicate a lot. A lot of them play different roles and different positions on the field. So,
yeah, I think he may be one of those situational pieces for sure. By the way, I look back at your offers: Miami, West Virginia, the Cows, Vandy, K-State, Cincy.
I was a late bloomer. I got a lot of those my senior year.
Yeah,
So
Tennessee was interested but said no mas. So it's very interesting. All right, who else we got in the DBs?
Yep. So we ended up getting one more. This is actually the first official transfer we got before Barnett, but we got DB Kamal Johnson, nicknamed Mello. He's a D2 guy. So we've shown over the last few years we're not afraid to go grab some D2 guys. Played at Wayne State. And he's young. He still has 3 years of eligibility left. He appeared in 2 games in 2024, mostly on special teams and as a reserve DB. But he was primarily playing free safety at Wayne State, and originally from Jacksonville. So he is a Florida guy and pretty good size, 6'2", 200 pounds. So a lot bigger than the previous guy. It's going to be, I think, a little bit harder for him to crack the rotation with, and we'll talk about this in a little bit with some of the DBs that have already announced who are coming back are pretty much penciled in as starters. But again, another good depth piece, a guy from the lower ranks that had a solid high school career at Riverside in Jacksonville, who's usually a competitive program, and decent size there and could play free safety. So we'll see if he ends up cracking the rotation. But we talked about this, I think 2 podcasts ago. Would you rather have that former 4 or 5-star guy, DB that played at Alabama, or would you maybe want to have someone like this? I think someone like this that we probably got, next to nothing in terms of NIL budget, that is probably going to, play his tail off and compete, I think is a good pickup for UCF. And not a lot of tape on him because he played fairly sparingly as a freshman. He redshirted a year and then played in a few games in 2024. So decent pickup, and we'll see how it goes.
All right, what else we got?
I think you do make a good point though, like the whole NIL thing, like that does change it. You might not want to take your swings on, the 4-star, former 4 or 5-star, because they're obviously going to ask for more money because they think, quote unquote, we're coming down here to play. But I have the Alabama prestige, quote unquote.
Right.
So that's a lot riskier than what you're saying. While the talent might be different, the NIL, I mean, it changes it significantly. Actually, that the money, it's a money game now. It's
in order for us to compete, we talked about this a few shows ago, with regard to being able to, what's your monetary strategy, right? So you want to keep some of your budget for those that you're going to compete against, for those heavy hitters, and you get the depth guys and the guys you're taking a chance on early, lock them down, and then you're going to have to compete because we're competing via dollars and we're also competing versus visits, because a lot of these guys get paid on visits. They're going to go on these other visits too, right? So
yeah,
it's just going to happen.
Yeah. And then the final one we got, which probably one of the bigger ones, we got another running back. As we know, we needed running back depth, or just running backs in general, with only 1 or 2 returning from last year's roster. So we ended up getting Landon Chambers. Is a guy who's played at Central Arkansas the last couple of years. Honestly, looks like a great Jaden Nixon replacement, kind of similar build at 5'11", 210, obviously a little heavier than Jaden Nixon, but similar height. Originally interesting, he was a fairly well-regarded high school player in the Dallas area, had multiple offers, mostly G5 coming out of high school, but he got an offer from BYU and committed to BYU, but then decommitted as more teams started offering him. A lot of teams in the Mountain West started offering him, like Colorado Air Force, Colorado State. But then for some reason, I was trying to look this up, couldn't find. He ultimately committed to Central Arkansas, who's obviously an FCS program, despite having multiple Group of 5 offers and even a couple Power 5 offers. So I don't know if it was a money thing or whatever it was, but ended up going to Central Arkansas. Did not really play his freshman year, was behind a more established back. But then last year had a breakout year. He was named to the All United Athletic Conference All-Conference First Team, had a really outstanding year, 10 touchdowns, averaged 5.3 yards per carry, and then had over 1,200 yards on the ground. So and average over 106 yards a game. So had a really outstanding redshirt freshman season. So he's got a lot of eligibility left. Looks like kind of has a very similar story to Jaden Nixon in a sense, and coming here after a really productive year at a smaller school, had P5 and G5 offers coming out of high school. So I think this is actually a really nice pickup. Could start. We know Tavion Swint was injured this year and hasn't really seen the field yet. So Chambers could be a guy that sees the field right away and is coming off a banner year where his first team all conference with 10 touchdowns and 1,200 yards. So and played at a really good school in Keller, Texas. So I think this is a really nice kind of underrated pickup and at a position, running back has not been a problem for UCF in quite some time with depth. But when you talk about Nixon and Montgomery graduating and Stacey Gage transferring, there was not much left in the running back room. So I think this is a really big pickup for UCF.
Yeah, when you look back at his offers, I mean, it's definitely not academics. He's got a Navy offer here, Air Force, Fordham, a bunch of those type of offers, which you've got to be good academically to be able to get those. And then what it looks like to me, and I think I remember a story about this, he had committed to BYU and then went on a Colorado Buffaloes. He went to Colorado and visited them, got an offer there. And then he decommitted. And then, after that, I think he was without a committable offer anymore from BYU. They moved on, and Colorado obviously didn't pick him up either. So he kind of did his penance, I guess, at Central Arkansas, and now he's ready to move back up into the P4. But I mean, everybody from OSU to some others were interested in him. Tulsa offered to. So, this guy coming out of high school, he had really, really good numbers and, 3-star guy, again, high 3-star guy that I think this is actually a good thing. And hopefully he has a chip on his shoulder where he earns his next paycheck with the Knights.
Yep, absolutely. So that those are inbound transfers. I'm sure there's more to come. UCF's predicted to get around, or needs probably around 30 guys. So we're going to see a lot more over the next couple of weeks during this portal window. But then obviously, the portal giveth and the portal taketh. So we had a few more entries. We're up to 28 total transfers. The latest ones that have entered, defensive lineman Jamal Johnson, who started to play a lot the last couple of years, definitely a really solid depth piece. So, somewhat of a loss there. Christian Peterson, who ended up committing to East Carolina. He's one of two guys so far in the portal, in our portal entrance that have actually committed somewhere. Cam Moore transferring for the second time. Defensive tackle Tyreek Robinson. Wide receiver Burdell Richardson, who that's no surprise there, never really saw the field. Linebacker TJ Bullard, again, a guy that never really saw the field for us, had a lot of injury issues. Rodney Laura, who was someone we were excited about early on the year, how he played against UNC and Jacksonville State. Dealt with some injuries, but somewhat of a loss there on the D line. Running back Stacey Gage, who I think you guys talked about in the last pod. Jakari Henderson, the worst of the Henderson twins. He ended up hitting the portal. Jaden Gold, who was a transfer from last year, he's going to be transferring again. Wide receiver DJ Black, who had a lot of drops last year. Someone that started off kind of hot and then really ended up kind of fading towards the middle and the end of the year. Linebacker Troy Ford Jr. Then a name, but not necessarily a big loss, Cam Fancher. There was speculation that he may return kind of in a assistant coach type of role, if you will, someone that was going to accept his role as a second or third string, but he's ultimately transferring, moving on to what would potentially be his fourth school. Wide receiver Carl Jenkins Jr., tough loss. I mean, this is a guy we're all excited about. He was in the last recruiting class in 2025. Someone that was a 4-star recruit, someone we were excited about, but it's kind of how it is now. He didn't see the field as a freshman, so he's transferring. Would have liked to see how he could perform given more time and development, but ultimately he's in the portal. And then finally, long snapper Dalton Riggs, who came over from BYU and was here for a year. He committed to Ohio State. So him and Christian Peterson are the only two that have announced commitments so far. So no huge names in there. Probably Jamal Johnson might be the biggest loss there. Maybe Stacey Gage as well. So, but not any two key losses there. But I think the bigger news is who announced they're returning and, quote unquote, re-signing with UCF, since everyone is a free agent every single year now in college football. But some big names, core pieces for us. So shout out to UCF for ponying up some money and getting a lot of their key guys back. So Braden Marshall came back with a little NFL. He said in his post
Flirtation?
on X. What was that?
Flirtation.
Well, he said NFL. What did he say? Something about loyalty. Never forget loyalty. And I guess that he put it the N, the F, and the L in caps. So he's going to finish his career as a Knight, which is pretty cool because there's not many guys that are doing that, these days. RJ Jackson, who we all like, defensive tackle, he announced he was returning. Linebacker Lewis Carter, who led UCF in tackles, big time returner for UCF. That's a real core piece on our as far as our linebacker core. Then Damari Henderson, shocker. I think when we saw Jakari, his twin brother, enter the portal, we just assumed that Damari would follow. But Damari is also going to finish his career at UCF, led UCF in interceptions 2 years ago, has been a pretty key piece of the secondary. Maybe not what he was hyped up to be out of high school, but definitely a key piece returning. Jaden Bellamy, another guy that was really good in our secondary, made some really key plays this past season, had one of the game-winning plays against Jacksonville State in the season opener. He's back, so that's big. Connor Meadows also announced returning, a depth piece on the O-line. Then tight end Caden Pining, who was a true freshman last year, redshirted, didn't really play, but he's back. Then Dylan Wade, that's the biggest one. I think we all unanimously agreed he was probably our best offensive player last year by a mile. Has set the UCF record for tight ends for catches in a season and yards in a season. So that was a big time. He was flirting with the portal, or at least putting out posts that would make you think he is, but he's back. So I think that's a great signing for UCF. Then running back Tavion Swint, who obviously was injured, he's going to be back. The only scholarship returning running back that will be back next year. Then Antoine Jackson, who probably you either hate him or love him. He's made some good plays. He's made some bad plays. He's dealt with injuries, but he is going to finish his career at UCF as well. And then probably the biggest news of the day was Horace Lockett, who put his name in the portal, was one of our best, if not, the best on the team, defensive tackle. Made some great plays, obviously also dealt with some injuries, but he had visits lined up with Ohio State. He visited Nebraska and a couple of other Power 5 schools. So he was a highly sought after defensive tackle, but ultimately he made the decision to come back to UCF because he's kind of already penciled in as a starter. Cam Martin, a lot of the coaches were celebrating this. This was a big win. So I think of, all those guys that I mentioned were, most of them at least were key pieces for UCF, especially on defense, and then Dylan Wade on offense. But getting Horace Lockett to withdraw his name and ultimately come back, I think that's a huge recruiting win for UCF.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of wins here. Honestly, Horace Lockett obviously being a big one. He was disruptive. His biggest challenge is that he's been injured so much, right? So, and he just had his third surgery for his torn pec. That's why he went out in the middle of this season. But he was absolutely disruptive, and RJ Jackson Jr. was as well. I mean, not as much as Horace Lockett. When Horace Lockett was in, he was moving the pile. I mean, just completely. He's a guy that you absolutely want on your D line. And then, as far as RJ Jackson Jr., I think, if Horace Lockett hadn't come back, I think RJ Jackson Jr. would be huge news as well. He is going to be a consistent guy who can break through offensive lines as well, just not as dominant as what Horace Lockett is. Dylan Wade is huge. That's like you said, you can't understate. We used him quite a bit last year. It was great to see him in the middle of the field and be that check valve. He has good hands and he's fairly speedy. So for a tight end, so I love that we got him back. He was actually being highly recruited as well. Damari was that question mark that we had said, and you know the thing about Damari and Jakari is this: Jakari didn't see the field, right? He was not as good as Damari was, and when we were recruiting them, they came as a package deal, and that's why Jakari was on UCF's football roster. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been, right? So if Jakari was transferring and he followed him, Damari would have been limited by Jakari's ceiling as to what he could get in NIL and what teams he could get an offer for. It was interesting too that Damari came in late with an agent announcement, like I think it was late last week, where he actually announced his agent and flirting with the portal for him coming back. That's a big deal to keep that core together. Braden Marshall, 4-star guy. You know, he's hit or miss. You know, as far as when he makes a difference, he can absolutely make a difference, especially when he's rushing the quarterback. But he's not quite locked down. He's not quite, you know, there, but he is a good player. So a solid piece for us as well. He will be a starter more than likely next year. Tavion Swint, keeping him is huge, obviously, with the running back room we talked about. He's coming off an injury, so I'm excited to see. He actually was more favored than Stacey Gage, so I think Stacey kind of saw the writing on the wall there, and which is why he left. So having him coming back, Caden Peening is another good piece. There was a lot of high expectations for Peening. He did great. He also did a great job in camp. So he's got huge upside. As far as that's concerned, Jaden Bellamy is a huge piece. He was one of the best DBs that we had on the field last season. So getting him back was excited. Again, DB 6'7", right? Antoine Jackson 6'7", right? So I care less one way or the other. And then you know, for me, the other big one, like you said, was Lewis Carter. We had a great linebacking core last year. Word's still out if we get our other big linebacker back from last year, because the court case for the FCS guys getting an extra year, that got pushed a couple weeks. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. There was supposed to be a decision. Then there was some more discovery that was asked for, and it's still going through the system. But I'd expect him to come back. If we get him back too, our linebacking core was very, very good. Best I've seen in a really long time. You know, the guys that we have coming back and re-signing, some of those are surprises to me. I expected Damari to go after he came in late and announced his agent and all of that. I expected Horace Lockett not to come back, so that was a big surprise. And so there's rumors out there too that John Walker is still well, I'll let you talk about that live breaking news from Allen. But John Walker is supposedly, what I have heard is he's between OSU and UCF as to whether he's going to come back to UCF or not as well. So there's still a possibility. OSU will throw a bag at him, but he will not. He's wanting to go to the NFL. He's not going to get a whole lot of playing time at OSU. He's not going to start at Ohio State. So I think that's the biggest draw, is he will get that playing time here and he will get the starts here. So I think the other thing people need to consider is, now that we've signed our QB1, one of the things these guys are thinking about is, okay, are we in position to win next year? Because you don't want to go through another 5-win season, or, you know, that be the expectation for especially these more senior guys who want to show out on the big stage. And you don't want to be stuck on ESPN2 or ESPN Plus or whatever, right? So your opportunities are going to be greater if you're on a bigger stage, and that comes when you win. And so, you know, making sure, we all know how much the offense let the defense down last year. It would have been demoralizing for me if I was on defense So the fact that we're putting some offensive pieces together, and I think that QB1 signing is a good sign, that'll help persuade some of those guys to come back. And I think that's why you saw that as well. Yeah. So why don't you go ahead with your breaking news, Alan?
I wanted to ask real quick, Trey, what do you know, obviously UCF was able to retain 4 pretty key.
Oh, you totally messed that up for me. I had you ready to go up on the screen and everything.
All right, fine. I'll go into it then. All right,
All
then
right.
I'll ask Trey a question after. So the breaking news that just happened, announced about 15 minutes ago, Wisconsin linebacker Tackett Curtis has signed with UCF. Played both at USC and Wisconsin, has 16 starts over the last 3 years, and he's totaled 96 tackles, 3 sacks, a forced fumble, 2 fumble recoveries, 6.5 tackles for a loss, and 4 pass breakups through 16 starts. 6'2", 230 pounds, obviously has a lot of ties to UCF defensive coordinator Alex Grinch, who coached at both Wisconsin and USC. So, I mean, definitely seems like a solid pickup, 16 starts, and a guy that's productive. So, you know, I don't know what that says about, you know, the other linebacker you mentioned that was pending that case. Maybe that means they don't feel like it's going to go the right way. But this seems like a productive guy that has played for 2 Big Ten schools.
This is what I have to say to that.
To which part?
Well, not to Cole Kozlowski still fighting his case. Obviously, for that signing, number one, not only is it experience, not only is it Big Ten, he was productive, but also size. One of the things that we've had with smaller linebackers because of where they came from. So getting a 6'2", 6'3" guy, 230, 240 pounds, that's the type of linebacker that you need in a power league. So I think that was a huge signing. I hadn't heard that he was a possibility, but when you mentioned that, I think that's a huge deal for us, and certainly continues that linebacker core that we've questioned every single year for probably 8 years. Oh my gosh, Josh, what is that picture? Okay. For those of you viewing us and not listening to us, Josh's picture is pretty interesting. That being said, I think that's a huge deal for us, huge signing. And it'll be successful for us as well. So, all right, Alan, after that breaking news, what were you going to ask Trey?
Oh, Chaz, so we signed or re-signed, I should say, 4 DBs, guys that most fans would know: Braden Marshall, obviously Damari, Antoine Jackson, and Jaden Bellamy. I mean, what do you think of those guys? Because Marshall has been a starter for, you know, a couple of years now. Antoine Jackson started quite a few games for us. Bellamy played really well last year. And then obviously Damari Henderson has a ton of starts at safety. But I think all, or at least 3 of those guys, Jackson, Damari, and Braden, are kind of like, I think, Roger, you said hit or miss. And I think a lot of fans, you know, like I said, either love them or hate them. I think they're all very highly recruited out of high school. All 3 of those guys were 4 stars, and not quite sure they live up to that. But what do you think of those guys as a DB? Because I know they get both love and hate. Some people think they're great. Some people think they're not as great. What do you think of those guys?
And
you're on mute or something.
Y'all hear me now?
Yep, go for it.
Okay. Yeah, I think realistically they fall probably in the middle. You see a lot of with them inconsistent. First of all, they have the talent. I mean, the physical ability as far as just, you know, what you want in DBs, size, length. They can run, pause, you know, things like that. Those kind of things, they have the ability. And it's not like they're not physical football players. Like, they're not scared of contact. I'm not going to say they're, you know, Kyle Gibson or TJ Mutcherson or Clayton Gathers. They're not that, but they're not scared to tackle. I just think it's inconsistency. And I think, you know, I kind of expected that year one in a new system. It's hard to get consistency when you're still kind of learning the defense, kind of feeling out your coaches. And then, you know, I think those are adjustments. But again, bringing back 3-4 guys that played a lot of snaps last year. And I mean, arguably that was probably one of our best. The defense was good, especially the pass defense was pretty good. You know, even relative to competition, it was still pretty good for the most part. I think they can take that next step. I think, like you said, the hit or miss is just it's literally hit or miss. I think the next step for them is just a lot more hits than the misses, so you become more consistently good. I think that's the step. And I think we took that step year 2 in 2017. We had new guys, but we had been in the system a second year. We knew all the basics. We knew, we see this team, this is what they like to run. We've seen this type of plays, this is what they like to do. How do we stop it? Oh, this hurt us last year. What can we change? Whereas a lot of the times guys cycle out nowadays and you have a whole new group and you're starting from scratch. You're going to have a lot of guys who have played specifically not just college football, but just with Coach Grinch and what he likes to do. And even bringing back, like you said, Lewis Carter, Horace Lockett, like those guys know. And I think that's key to keeping the defense above water. That's what we want to be, truthfully. We want to be amazing on both sides. But if I had to pick, I just want to be a solid defense, good defense, and really good offense, because that's what, that is where we see a lot of success. And I just want to see, I think they have the ability. It's not that they don't have the ability. It's just a matter of putting it together. So hopefully they can in year 2.
Yeah, I think Grinch is a big X factor for us, right? We were arguing whether, coaching makes a difference as to who you get when in the era of the dollar bills. But I think if things are close, I think the coach, whether it be a position coach or whether it be, the head coach, I think makes a big difference in whether people believe that either they can develop them better or make them outstanding, or if they can win. Right. So I think that makes a big difference for players. And I think Grinch, I told you guys beginning of last season, there were a lot of question marks there that I thought he was a great hire. He proved it last season. And I think a lot of the reasons you're seeing these guys stick around is because of Alex Grinch and the success that they had as a defense, because numerically they were up there. And when you're in a power league and you have a solid defense like that, that's going to get you NFL looks. And a lot of these guys, juniors or seniors, why not ride one more time with a guy that that's going to get the most out of your defense and it's going to get you at a stage that's going to make you successful. So
especially in the back end, like I see why guys up front, they might want to go somewhere else, because a lot of line play is just physical ability. Like it's a lot of it. You need to be smart, yes, but a lot of it's just, can you move the guy in front of you? How quickly can you get to the quarterback? In the back, playing DB, playing linebacker, while there are a lot of physicals, it's so much communication, so much you need to know what you're doing to make a play. Like if you freelance, well, yeah, you can make plays, but you can also look terrible. I think that's important. So I don't think guys should really jump ship like that unless it's a true step up in talent or, where they're playing. But again, we're playing you're already at a Power 5 league. You're going to see Power 5 players each and every week. It's not like when we were in the AAC where, let me go to the Big 12 or the SEC if I can. It's very different. You guys are playing in Big 12. A lot of these guys are Big 12 quarterbacks, Big 12 receivers are going to play on Sundays and be good players on Sundays.
Well, it's budget too, right? So it's dollar bills. Dollar bills. That's the other thing. And this year UCF was able to step up its budget as far as what they could spend on players this year too. So the other thing, and we'll talk about that a little bit in the comments, but the new GM role that we had makes a difference too, as far as getting money in for NIL, portal, et cetera. And then also who we spend that on and how they negotiate with these agents to get them back, as well. So it's one of those things that, it's a combination of things starting to come together. But I really think defensively, the combo of Grinch having a few more dollars, having a great performance last year and proving that, hey, you can make it happen at UCF, at least defensively, and having a GM that's bringing in the dollars and can effectively manage that part of the organization is important. And one of the things, Coach Frost said before the season was over is he said a lot of the defensive guys that we wanted to keep we've already worked out deals with, right, after the season was over. So I think you're seeing the fruit of that. And that's a good GM if they're doing that and takes it out of Scott Frost's hands for the most part. Yep. All right. We do have one recruit that we need to talk about that we told you weeks and weeks and weeks ago that he had signed and that he would announce, and it looks like he did. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Tyron Horns?
Yeah, obviously this is a big time pickup. UCF needed a receiver in this 2026 class. That was the only skill position they didn't recruit or have someone commit. So we were kind of been somewhat rumored to get Horns for a little bit now. Obviously, this is a late pickup. He was definitely one of the top unsigned 4-star players in the country. So this is a massive recruiting win for UCF. Kind of somewhat of a local kid, Sarasota, played at Booker High, 6 foot, 175 pounds. Like I said, 4-star. He's had 2 really, really good upperclassmen seasons at Booker. His junior year was probably his most noteworthy year. He had 67 catches for 1,360 yards and 17 touchdowns his junior year. Then last year tapered off a bit, had 42 catches for 600 plus yards and 9 touchdowns, but he was named the Under Armour Next Camp wide receiver MVP, which is actually a local tournament that's played in Orlando that showcases a lot of the top Central Florida high school players. So to be named the wide receiver MVP, obviously someone that's, highly rated amongst his peers and, plays against great competition. So he now becomes the highest rated recruit in UCF's 26 class. So surpasses the quarterbacks. And, I think it's a big pickup. He obviously had 30 plus offers, most of them Power 5, obviously a few group of 5s in there, but some noteworthy ones: Auburn, Georgia, Iowa, Louisville, Penn State, Ole Miss, Washington, among a lot of others. So big win.
K-State, Vandy, Auburn, Maryland, right, Arizona, pretty much everybody in the Big 12, everybody in the ACC. Like you said, primarily all P4 offers. Now, the one thing, if you guys remember when we talked about this back before National Signing Day, when I was on the show, I was talking about how this should be a commit that we expect to see commit later on. He actually, talking to some people I know within the program, he actually signed a long time ago, which is why I was kind of putting that out there. He signed right around National Signing Day. He just had a birthday at New Year's and was going to play in the Under Armour game and wanted to announce there, so they kept it quiet until then. Now, we had another former 4-star who came here who did the same thing in the Under Armour game. Do you guys remember who that is?
It was a wide receiver, you said?
No, it was a defensive player.
Tremont Morris-Brash.
Exactly. And he turned out pretty good for us. Now, it took him a couple of years to get to his full potential, right? Funny story about Morris Brash, when we were doing how they used to do the signing of the posters and stuff. He was there as a freshman. He signed mine and my kids' posters as drop. And the other guys saw that and said, "You don't do that here. You put your full name on there. You're a freshman." So they made him sign all 3 of the posters again because he was signing it with drop. So it was pretty funny. But yeah, I mean, this kid, he's going to be, 92.77 rating. Trey, you were talking about offers and how you judge yourself on offers. I mean, everybody that you can think of offered this kid. And I mean, these weren't non-committable offers. Penn State, like,
He's probably going to play this year a lot.
Yeah. Oh, he will play.
He's going to get his fair shot to play this year a lot.
Well, I mean, the wide receiver room, we've got some talent coming back. Like Day Farmer, I'm expecting a lot out of him this year. You look at, it sucks that Jenkins isn't going to be back, but we had some good pressure. Yeah, Wade and Charles is going to be back. Thomas, that's good probably player. Your starting receivers there, right? And then
you mix up because even Thomas, he does everything. He reminds me of like a Otis. Put him in at running back, put him in at slot receiver. Like that's what he reminds me of. But in the perfect world, Frost is going to rotate his guys because they all have different skill sets. So he's going to try to, if he can get a matchup exploit here, he's going to do it. That's what he's going to do. That's why I think he's going to play. He's going to get a chance, or he's going to get his fair shot to play.
Yeah, and then you've got Dylan Wade, right
Yep.
behind, as another receiving target. So offensively, we've got a pretty good quarterback. And we've got good skill position players at wide receivers. So I expect us to exploit that. Again, it's going to be offensive line, right? What's going to happen with offensive line? And Horns is actually pretty fast as well. He's got a pretty good. I'm trying to pull his high school.
While you're pulling that, I'd like to say, like, it would be nice for one of these 4-star receivers to hit. I think wide receiver is a position we've struggled at now last year and a little bit the year before. I mean, we've had some great names, like Javon Baker and Kobe Hudson, but it's really tailed off if you think about it. And last year, I think, yes, we had struggles with O-line and we didn't have a great quarterback, but I think you look at this wide receiver room in the last year or two, and it's not reminiscent of a lot of UCF's best, even mediocre teams that I think have had better receivers than we've had. So I'd really like to see him work out, because we've gone on a run now of getting 4-star receivers, whether it's Burdell Richardson, even going back to Heupel and getting I'm forgetting his name, the kid from Hawaii.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be all that, and then he ended up transferring, I think, to Cal and hasn't really done much. Or maybe it was UCLA, but
it was UCLA. He followed Dylan. He followed Dylan, and then Dylan left for Oklahoma.
Right. But these 4-star receivers, as of late, have not been hitting. I guess maybe Wade and Charles would be the exception there if he continues his ascent and to improve. So, to me, until they prove it, especially now, where if you don't play your freshman year, you essentially transfer. So, it would be nice to hit on that, because I think wide receiver is a position that I'm always so excited about for UCF and used to it being really stacked, and it just has not been that way for a little while now.
Yeah, so he hit 11 seconds in the 100-meter and 21.91 in the 200-meter. If you convert that, that's flying. Yeah, that's not if you convert that to a 40-yard, that's probably a 4.40 or 4.5 40-yard dash. So I don't know, I haven't watched him run, so I don't know if it's burst or not off of the line, but this kid can fly. And that means when he gets going, he's gonna be that speed that we need, and it looks like he has the hands, which was the problem with Black. He had some speed on him. He just dropped so many passes that it really hurt us during games. There were important games, and it also, when you have that and you have someone you're expecting to be your number one guy, then that means the defenses can shift gears basically and don't have to worry about that guy as much, or not put their number one DB on him. They can put somebody else who's just got speed that can keep up with him if he doesn't make those contested catches, let alone when he was open. There were times where he was dropping passes where he was open and, was still dropping them. So I think this is a big pickup for us. I think, obviously he's a headliner for the class. But I think we've got some good. We've got a good QB that can throw to him and the rest of the team, and then having 4 true receiving threats as starters, and even if you rotate some of those guys, even 3, it makes a difference for how defenses can play you and the matchup mismatches that you can make as well, depending on the defense that you are playing. All right. So how are we feeling, fellas? I almost said fellers.
Fellers.
An hour in and no basketball is what I'm seeing.
Well, we got a lot of great basketball coming up next. I mean, that's a lot of news, right? So, the next big news to talk about is hoops. I mean, we've got a top 25 team in hoops, first time that's been ranked since 2019. Big, coming off a huge win off of Kansas. When Ben was here last week, and I got to see, because I see a message from him to see if he's going to join. He was going to. Apparently, Andrew said the FCS championship game, which just finished, was a good one. The big thing for us was that first stretch of 3 or 4 games, and Kansas was really going to set the tone for us. And what I saw out of this team that I liked was they stayed true to themselves. I mean, Kansas got up early a little bit, and we just played through it, and we kept winning. We didn't lean on the three too much. I like Themis Folks. He continues his ability to, get to the basket. That was the big thing early on. And even it was funny. Self said in the post game that, he was really an assist guy when they were watching the tape on him, but he's continued to increase his scoring. He's now third on the team in scoring, right behind Riley Kugel, who's cooled off at 14.1. But for this game, Riley Kugel absolutely turned it on, especially early. Burks is averaging 13.8. He had that big three in the corner to end the game out, to close the game out, basically, right? And then Kugel followed that up with that foul. It was that Chris Johnson, too. What a spark plug. We talked about him the week before. Ben and I talked about him, how he could be a big difference maker for us, as well as Cambridge. And both of those guys were sparks when we needed them. And just what you saw in Kansas was they had a few guys. There were two guys that basically did all their scoring, right? And then everybody else on the bench just wasn't great. And so Bill Self pointed that out as well as the strength for this team is that bench and that bench strength, and being able to pull those guys in and produce that scoring off of the bench was extremely impressive. And when you look at it, both teams shot 44% from field goal. They actually shot better from three, 35 to 30. It did help that, but here's where it helps and it hurts, right? And it goes back to kind of what we talked about before in past teams. You had two or three guys that we relied on basically to score, right? And then, when we relied on those two players to score, if they had an off night, we really didn't have anybody else. This team is completely different. We've got an extra pass. We're showing different offenses. We handled the press well. That Johnson behind the back, when he was trapped on the sideline and got that ball to Riley Kugel, that really made the difference in the waning minutes of the game, right? In the past, that wouldn't have happened. So him coming in off the bench and being able to have that level of awareness to get that ball out of there to Kugel was huge. Free throws, we didn't shoot well, comparatively speaking. I mean, 69%. 70% is good. We usually shoot around 80%. Rebounding was interesting. We wanted to see what this team was going to do against a P4 power when it came to rebounding, right? Because the strength had been offensive rebounding, and it really was a tale of two halves. The first half, we got, we were boxed out. We were out of position constantly. Second half, completely different story. Stillwell got in there. He started getting aggressive and started bodying guys. Bowl did well, but Cambridge really, it's those little things that Cambridge was doing, whether it be on the boards or whether it be, that extra energy shot or whatever. In the limited minutes that he had, it made a big difference in the game, right? So Econ says Cambridge and Johnson's were the bench guys that got the victory. Agreed. Cambridge led Knights in rebounds. He went into their center's chest to draw fouls. Again, that's experience and body. So like early on in the season, he was getting starting minutes in the rotation, and then it kind of backed off. And I remember Ben making that comment, about him, why do we keep playing him? Here's why, but I think he's better in the role that he is, and especially with Bowl learning, right? I think he's better in the role that he is coming off the bench. Because he brings that experience. He can body people if he needs to. He gets the rebounds. He can score. It's not like he has, bad hands. He's got pretty soft hands. So he can, when he's getting bumped or whatever, he can play through that. And what's different about this year's team and in college basketball, as a whole, the lost art of the short jumper, right? Within 10 feet of the basket, and you need that to break zones. That's how you break zones. So having guys that can do that, whether it be Themos Folks or Kugel will do it from time to time. Cambridge can score from there. Bowl can score from there as well. So having guys like that who can break up those zones with that type of offensive game and finding a spot where it's soft in the zone and make that basket is hugely important, because that's extra possessions that are not contested where you get open shots. And if you can make that at a 40% clip, you're going to win some basketball games, because that effectively neutralizes that defense completely. Assist to turnover ratio. We had 10 assists. The turnovers, we had 15 turnovers, but they were all late game turnovers. They were second half turnovers. The first half we didn't have hardly any. We had 6 turnovers.
Yeah, I was saying it's way off.
6, which was really, really good. Kansas had 12 turnovers, especially late in the second half. So seeing this team tighten up defensively coming out of the half, being able to adjust, maintaining composure, and holding this team and being able to limit your mistakes, you're going to be in a lot of games if you can shoot 70-80% from the charity stripe. So, and fast break points, 15 to 16 points in the paint, 38 to 30. So we actually got more points in the paint versus them, past Kansas teams. Obviously that was their strength. So we were able to get points there. And, we led almost 70% of the game. So this was not just a there was a lot of back and forth lead changes, but the vast majority of the game, we controlled the game with some runs. So we sustained those runs. And then we played smart. Kansas made mistakes at the end of the game. And, when you look at a score as close as it really was 2 possessions there at the end that won it for us. We didn't make mistakes and they did, which says a lot about this team. Josh, you were there. What did you see?
Oh, so much from what you said. I couldn't let you get off the roll. So let's just go back earlier in the year. John Bull was not what he was doing right now. That's why part of the reason why Cambridge was in. He's great at defense. He is a glue guy. He does all the things. He'll put his hands out. He'll defend, with his full vertical length. He will get after boards. And Bull was still slowly getting there. He's gotten much, much better since Hofstra, much, much better. And so that's why there's different, that height and the ability to, he literally took a rebound out of someone's hands who was standing up with his hands outreached during that game. No one else is doing that on this team. So there's a lot of reasons why the starters are the starters now, and Cambridge is wonderful if he's a starter or if he's coming in as a 6th man, if you will. It's not like he only had 5 minutes less than Bowl, and it wasn't like Bowl was in deep foul trouble. So that's the past, and we got to the present. It was very clear from the first couple of possessions that getting Bedinga, number 40 for Kansas, and getting him in foul trouble was number one. It's the number one thing they were doing. They were you're saying earlier, I think also Econ was saying earlier, it was like Cambridge getting into his chest. It was Stillwell on the side trying to drive in. They were trying to get him fouled out early, and they got that done. While he was doing that, Darren Peterson was back, who has some injuries and whatnot, and he just went when you watch someone who should be playing in the NBA, you know it when you see it. He's that man. Now
he's gonna be number 1 draft pick probably.
He's phenomenal when he's on the court, and that's when I'll get to in a bit. So the Knights basically had, okay, can we get Council or Bedinga out of the game and see what happens with Peterson? No one else is going to beat us. I think that was this part of the strategy. You can kind of see that in the recaps and the cinematic recaps and all the other things that UCF has put out when they talked about a team. And that's the difference between UCF and Kansas as of right now. We are a pretty gelled team for the most part that isn't playing ISO ball and is doing the things that Kansas would want to do as a team. And injuries are part of the reason they can't. So our strategy was great. Council went off on the second half because he was barely in the first half. He was gone real quick, but Dinga was in foul trouble and close to it, and he was in and out. Their backup center was not good enough, and that's why we led most of this game. Like between ties and leads, we led or tied 75% of this game. So this was not a fluke or anything. We played better than Kansas almost the entire game. Now, if Kansas had all their starters in for all the game and they were playing like a gelled team, I don't know what would happen. But that's not what happened. Further, so we did well. There's only one area of the game where I was like, oh, this is not good. Part of it was Pacheco driving up the ball and got trapped and turned it over. The 70-61 that became 70-70, which is why we needed Burks in the corner three after some really great teamwork and amazing passes. There were pieces where we did make mistakes down the road, but this isn't the UCF basketball team of the last couple of years. And I would say Darius Johnson had some clutch scores, right? Sometimes Hall too, but it was usually Darius Johnson. But if you double team Darius, who are you throwing it to, and can they close? I'm looking at the bench right here. I'm not saying Chris Johnson is getting the ball in his hands with 10 seconds to go, but if he's all we had left, I wouldn't be that afraid. And now we're going about second or third guard down. We're deep, and we have ballers, and they are playing well. And we haven't even scratched the complete surface of it yet, because there's still sometimes where Riley is sometimes kind of isoing, but he's good enough to take someone off the ball and just win. So this is what I saw. When I was at the Hofstra game, the first game, I was like, what the heck is this team going to be? We almost lost. And Hofstra, honestly, probably going to make the NCAA tournament or close, but not necessarily in our league. Saw Vanderbilt, like, tight game, but we lost. It's Vanderbilt. Little did we know that, they'll be undefeated at this point too. But you saw the growth, and we saw the growth over and over again. And a lot of it was going down deep. Like we went down, 15 points at FAU and then made it back? We have a team that can fight back. They're a team. They're resilient. Anyone can get 10 to 15 points. We've had so many different players lead in scoring. So what I saw at Kansas was the result of win after win after win, and building and building and building. And the way Johnny Dawkins wants his team to run. And do I think this is a flash in the pan? No. Do I think we're going to see some losses? Yeah, it's going to happen. Am I excited about what I saw then and what I've seen the last about 3 or 4 games? Absolutely. Like, this is what we've waited for a long time, and it looks like it can sustain and continue.
Yeah, the big thing for me is Adam Hood. When it comes to the offense, that's the big difference this year, right? So we were not scoring at the level that we were scoring before, and balanced offense. Obviously, it's part of its wash with the roster makeup, but also I think Johnny was smart enough to bring Adam Hood in, and you're seeing his offensive concepts start to gel with the new roster that we have. The other thing against Kansas, the difference was the bench. We had 8 points from Cambridge, 3 from Femena, 7 from Chris Johnson. They had 0, 0, 3, and 2. And obviously they didn't get as many bench players in, so they were playing more minutes as well. That was the difference in this game, and that's the difference in this team. And we've been talking about it all season long, and the fact that they figured out how to play together, right? They're playing unselfish basketball. You saw the that corner 3 by Burks. There's games he'll go off for 20, 30 points. That's why he's averaging 13.8. per game. And there's, times where he'll wait for his shot and wait for the extra pass. Fulks could have taken that 3-point shot, but he knew that Burks was in his spot and he gave him that opportunity. Riley Kugel played a lot better. He's kind of been off, and he played a lot better at versus Kansas. Smarter basketball, played a lot better. So I was excited to see that, because Riley Kugel really is, or could be, a superstar for us. And then, Stillwell, we wanted to see how he would do against better competition. This is Kansas. This is, some of the best competition in the country that you're going to play against. He had 29 minutes. He had 8 points. His field goal shooting was a little off. He hit 1 3, still got 7 rebounds, 1 offensive rebound, and 6 defensive rebounds. So, again, this was a team win. And, what's interesting to me is going to be what we do against Cincinnati. So the ESPN now has, yeah, exactly, Econ. We talked about that on the preview. Last year was all one-on-one offense. So that limits your ability, and we can run different offensive sets. We're running offensive sets. It's, you see pick and roll attempts, you see dribble handoffs, you see extra passes, you see guys cutting in the lane. You see guys getting set up for ISO. There's a bunch of different types of offenses that you're seeing every single game, and the ability to switch effectively on defense. So we're still have retained, and this is one of Johnny Dawkins' biggest, coaching things. He's a defensive-minded coach, and he's really good at coaching defense, is the ability to switch defenses effectively and have the players be smart enough to recognize when to switch those defenses and not lose anything in the middle of the game. And that's one of the biggest things that this team has done successfully, is they're not just great on defense. Adam Hood's made a big difference as far as the offense and getting the most out of all of these different types of players, which creates matchup issues for teams that are one-dimensional, which we were. Same way in football, same way in basketball. So we gutted those out. Now, as we ramp up for Cincinnati, who we play tomorrow, if you're watching live with us, if you're watching, you're not, this is an interesting team. This is a team with history with UCF for a lot of reasons. One, when we were at the ACC, they used to body us all the time. I mean, I remember the first game I watched with Cincinnati, they got away with so many fouls. They literally were clotheslining people in the middle of in mid-court and would get away with it in the AAC. Well, now fast forward, last year we beat them. They stole our center, our big name center, along with the coach that was buying all of the centers out of Sudan. But there was big controversy with that last year. We've got Bowles seems to be rounding out. He was a 4-star guy and a McDonald's All-American. People don't realize that, but Bowl was a McDonald's All-American, right? So he has the ability, and the difference for him is he has a soft touch offensively. Now he needs to get better about when he gets a rebound, like squeezing the ball, right? Grip it, dude. You've got hands the size of my face. You should be able to grip the ball. But he's getting a lot better. Cincinnati comes in. I know. Pause. The Cincinnati comes in, and they're interesting, right? Because they are a defensive team if you look at their stats. So if you just look at their stats, statistically, they're holding teams to 65, 66 points, right? They're only averaging in the low 70s as far as scoring is concerned. However, when you go back and dive a little deeper into their schedule and see what the results were, things get a lot more lopsided for the teams that are not great versus the teams that are decent and have a pulse. They've lost pretty much every single game. They lost to Xavier, which is their big rivalry game that goes back years. They lost to Georgia 84-65. They lost to Clemson 68-65. They lost to Houston 67-60. They lost to Louisville 74-74 or 74-64. So again, then they trade like NJIT where they win 94-67. So that 70, even that 70 points per game is kind of fool's gold against good competition. Western Carolina 94-63. Ooh, you know what I mean? Against good competition, they're averaging 64 points, 74 points, 65 points, 60, 60 in the low 60s. So our offense and being able to produce 80 points, over 80 points per game, and we talked about and broke that down last week, is going to be huge. Also, from a rebounds perspective, we match up well with them. So ESPN actually has them winning, which I question, to be quite frank. And they do have several players that are out as far as on the injury report is concerned. But I feel really, really good about this game against Cincinnati. I know it's an away game. I know it's against Cincinnati in their home court, and it gets pretty wild in there. But I don't agree. I feel a lot more confident after that showing against Kansas, and I know we were at home, but I feel a lot better at our ability to sustain those wins after getting behind, et cetera, to play and beat Cincinnati at home.
Yeah, and Cincinnati is an interesting one because I'm looking at both Cincinnati, who are playing this weekend, and Oklahoma State, that were playing, well, tomorrow if you're watching live.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, tomorrow's Oklahoma State. You flip them. It's okay. Oklahoma State's interesting because we have an interesting background with them. Like, yeah, because Oklahoma State, for some odd reason, we've been doing really, really good against, and we shouldn't have. This is back to, like, if you're really old school UCF, those who shall not be named, the twins that ditched us for Oklahoma State about 2 decades ago.
God, yeah.
Back when you only got so many scholarships, so they basically killed our scholarship count this is old UCF, but we've been doing okay against them. But I'm looking at who they're played. I mean, they played like nobody's, like the Cows and Sam Houston. They've only lost to, like, Texas Tech, it's a darn good team and ranked, and Oklahoma. They got they didn't lose that bad to. I'm sure they weren't happy about it, but that's an interesting team. Like, they're 12-2, but I'm not looking at anyone where I'm thinking other than Texas A&M, but we have that in common. Who's world beater. So that's going to be an interesting one on the road, and I really hope we do well on that. And Cincinnati is also, you're not wrong. Cincinnati is, I think there could be a piece of, they were doing really, really good against Houston and only took a 7-point loss. Their team is good defensively. They're holding people pretty low within reason at times, depending on the team. So the next 2 games are going to be really interesting because Oklahoma State on the road, I'd have to check their net, but that would still be really great. Cincy at home, I think Cincy at home is going to be loud. I'm definitely going to do everything I can to show up. I think it's going to be a loud one again because we need, like, we kind of need that one, not for anything other than ourselves.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma State, the interesting thing with them is they were kind of in a similar situation, although a little bit different than what we were last year, and they completely turned their roster over. In fact, we got Beal from their team last year. He's injured right now, which is why he's not playing, but he was a rebounding machine for them last year and pretty highly touted. And he was a big get for us in the offseason. The big thing about Oklahoma State is they score a lot of points. So we are averaging 87.8 points per game. They're averaging 90.4. Now their defense isn't as good. Now they play a lot of transition offense. So it's going to be a high-paced, fast-paced game. So it'll be interesting to see what Johnny does to counter that. I think a lot of that will be how we come out. If we come out flat, then he's going to slow the game down. If not, then this I don't want us to get into a shooting contest with these guys because they can score as effectively as what we can. Their field goal percentage is 49%. Ours is 49%. Rebounds 40.6 versus 40.4. Assists 16.8 for UCF versus 15.9. Blocks 2.9 versus 3.0. Steals, we have 5.8 per game. They have 7.6. So pretty evenly matched. So in order for us to win this game, if as long as we don't come out flat, this is going to be a shootout, right? And that's something that we have to be really, really, really careful at in doing that. Their big player is going to be Roy. He's going to be the guy that you're going to have to watch out for. He's 17.7 points per game. I'm hoping that Riley Kugel, I mean, the guy shoots 48% from the floor and 93% from the free throw line. So he's a guy that I expect us to try to get out early because he's going to carry the vast majority of the points for the team. I'm hoping Kugel continues the momentum that he had out of this game and brings it to Oklahoma State, because their strengths are similar to what our strengths are in the ability to, in the transition game, to play fast. You know, it's going to be really, 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 really interesting to see, because we're playing away, and you know, they all of the both teams have the ability to score a lot of points. So it's going to be who's going to be playing, you know, the better defense as far as that's concerned. OSU, the other one to look out for is their forward. Fala is his name. Parsa Fala. He is averaging 22 and a half minutes, 13.6 points per game. So they've got two scorers that are going to do most of their scoring, and they've got only one other one, Christian Coleman, who's in double figures, whereas UCF has 4 in double figures as well. And so they do a lot of scoring off the bench, which is, again, strength versus strength. So we're going to have to get a couple of those big scores out early. And we can't come out flat, because if we do, we can get behind really, really quickly, and they do really well in transition. So they can put a lot of points on the board in a very short period of time.
Yeah, I'm really, I'll say, these two games are going to be really a good test of how far we're actually gone. I mean, we'd all love to see 2-0, but even if we get 1-1, I mean, when
we talked about it, because we've got some pretty big tests coming up with Arizona and you know, Iowa State and a few others, like, right in a row. You know, Ben and I were cautioning that nation not to be too apoplectic if you know, we didn't win a ton. This ESPN has this as a 50-50 game, right? I think there's a lot of unknowns still with this Oklahoma State team, but they're 12-2. You know, they've got a lot of wins. The last 2 losses, they haven't really won against anybody, you know, massively like great. And they have, the common opponent that we have is Texas A&M. 87-63, it was their win there, but everybody else is like Texas Christian and Oral Roberts and Prairie View and Nichols and Northwestern. They have a really soft schedule. Grand Canyon's usually pretty good. They did beat them, but they played Oklahoma. Then it's like full Cal State Fullerton and BCU, which Cal State Fullerton's usually a tournament team too. But Texas Tech and OU, they lost both of those games, and Tech dropped 102 points on them. So it'll be really, really interesting to see what happens with this game, because they do play to our strengths if you look at them statistically. And this could be a game coming off the big KU win where past teams may fall flat out of the gate. And if we fall flat out of the gate, we could potentially fall behind pretty quickly. All right. That's it for hoops for right now. We're an hour and 37 minutes in, but lots of great news. I feel a lot better this year than I did previous years. I mean, Johnny has had a penchant in the past to drop a few of these in a row after a start like this. So I'm hoping that's not the case, but I think this team is different. And I do honestly think and truly think that that's not going to be the case with this team. So it's exciting to see what happens tomorrow. We're going to watch some good basketball tomorrow. All right. That being said, let's go ahead and swim it. There it is, to our listener love section. I want to thank everybody. Everybody was pretty active this past week, which is exciting. I imagine we'll have a lot more comments this week as well. So shout out to everyone. You know, we appreciate the comments, the likes, the subscriptions. Make sure you tell your friends, because it really makes a difference. So Maddie Maddie Cat 16 said, this was to your prediction thread. Bro was actually right. So congratulations, Josh. You got a quick shout out for actually being right on your prediction.
I nailed that prediction too.
Oh my gosh.
That was probably one of the best ones I've done. Easily.
Yeah. Definitely one of the best ones you've done. All right. And look out for those pre-game and post-game. You also got a good court storming video out there. Pittsfield 29 frequent commenter said, good point about not panicking if UCF starts slow versus top 5 to 10 hoops teams. Agree with that. With what we did in our out of conference, we should be well positioned if we lose a few of these down the stretch. But this Kansas game really gave me a lot of hopium. As far as our ability to weather the storm and really be successful this season. Okay, a guy agreeing 5469. He says, as a UCF band member, I'm ready to play as loud as I can to help the team beat Kansas Sunday. Go Knights, charge on. Great to see some of our younger guys and especially our band members on here. So thank you, man. For joining and following and commenting. And thank you for playing your hearts out. It obviously made a difference, and I hope you enjoyed the game. Lewis Jefferson 7043. This was in reference to us talking about Calipari and his comments on NIL. He says, the godfather of the one and done talking about getting a degree is rich. And our response was totally agree, but he still has enough of a name to bring attention to it. Bruce Pearl, etc., also said this is unsustainable. And here's my main point with this. I saw this somewhere, and I'm kind of warming up to the idea that this may be the NCAA just throwing its hands up because they're constantly in legal situations, and once they clear one, they're into the next lawsuit, and just saying, hey, look, we're going to piss off enough SEC, Big Ten teams in football and a bunch of basketball teams to get those guys involved. If Alabama keeps getting outspent because they don't have the largest NIL in the SEC and they don't have Nick Saban as that guy who puts people in the NFL all the time for people and winning national championships all the time to make up the difference. If those types of teams continue to lose or not win national championships or they're getting outspent by other teams, this is going to turn into a problem. I think the NCAA has just basically said, hey, we've got the guardrails in place. And they've gone to Congress. You had the SCORE Act last year, didn't end up getting passed. I think this may be hey, we know this is a train wreck, but we've tried to make some attempts to fix it and it's not happening. So here's what you get. So I'm not unconvinced. I know that's a double negative, that's not what the NCAA strategy is as well. And then Lewis Jefferson comes back, says, it's always been about money. The players are finally making money now. They want to set rules and regulations. Whoever made the rules will bend them in their favor. So yeah, that's true, but I think that's going to change. Then Savannah fan, a frequent commenter, I understand the money, but you think it's a great point regarding bouncy ball version of players that move into multiple schools. The former college players I've met have been super proud of the affiliation with the schools that they attended. Listen, that's changing. It's not that way anymore. Now, there may be some storied programs like Ohio State, Michigan, maybe some SEC type schools that may be homegrown and proud of their affiliation, but it doesn't matter anymore. Whoever pays more is going to get that. He says RJ Harvey will always be a Knight. RJ could have moved schools 100%, but same way with Braden Marshall, but that's not the norm anymore. And the truth is, he said this is true capitalism. Our economy, our national economy is not even true capitalism, right? So there's going to have to be some guidelines in place. And then Econ Advisor pops in and lets us know that Brady Wayburn signed from UConn. And Texas Recruited 14888 says the new GM y'all hired put together a great team. So agree there on all fronts. That being said, just want to thank everyone for their comments. It makes it a heck of a lot more fun for us. We don't make any money off of this. We do it for the funsies and to talk UCF Sports with you. So make sure you like, subscribe so that our algorithm gets pushed. We're averaging about 18 to 20,000 views per month right now because of you. So continue to watch, like, subscribe, and share with all of your friends, because the more, the merrier. All right. With all of that being said, it's time to swiv it yet again.
Swiv it yet again?
Allen is not excited. To Allen's oxymoronic stat of the week. Allen, take it away.
With it. Yeah. Okay. All right. Here's my stat here. So in the last 5 seasons, here are UCF quarterbacks touchdowns that we've had each individual season. So in 2021, Mikey Keene had 17. In 2022, JRP had 14. 2023, JRP had 15. Last 2024, KJ had 7. And then last year, Taven Jackson had 10. Those were our leading passing touchdown scorers. Yeah, exactly. In the last 2 years alone, Barnett, our transfer quarterback from James Madison, has had 23 and 26. And that's more than any quarterback that UCF has had in the last 5 years. So it's looking like a definite improvement.
Got some heart there. All right. I'm playing with
Oh
the
my God.
So that's an interesting stat, and definitely bodes well for us. Like, obviously seeing those kind of stats and seeing a quarterback who can throw for touchdowns, but he's also doing it with his feet. I know you were talking about touchdowns total, but like he's doing it with his feet as well. So I think that's going to bode well for us, and he has the body to take the punishment. So again, hopefully, we get that O-line squared away, because that's really the next big thing. Because I think the rest of the team's shaping up well with who we kept and who we're bringing in defensively, and then also with the skill guys. So I'm excited. Let's see if we can get some work done on the O-line. So, Mr. Blazey, it's your turn. You're next man up. All right. With that being said, it's time to swiv it yet again.
Swiv it.
All right, there we go. He woke up. To Josh's sometimes funny fact of the week. Josh, take it away.
So I think this is a pretty simple one. It's just an easy yes or no question. Have we beaten a ranked team in men's basketball each year since UCF joined the Big 12?
Ooh.
So Kansas is what the first year. Kansas this year. Last year.
Yeah, I think we.
Texas Tech was 14. Yeah, I think so. I'm gonna go with yes, all 3.
Roger?
That's what I just said. I said yes. Texas Tech.
You were actually correct and wrong at the same time.
It wasn't Texas Tech.
Yes. So we
Texas A&M.
Correct. So
That's
this year, Kansas is so far. Yeah, I'm sure Texas A&M and Texas Tech love to be. It's like if people confuse.
I don't care what they think. It's all. This is my show, so I do what I want. That's what I meant.
So obviously we beat Kansas this year so far. Maybe there's more to come. We hope. Last year was only Texas A&M. In 2023-24, we beat Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas Tech, which were all ranked. But we didn't do so hot there. And speaking of 2023, that was Jalen Sellers was on that team, left for Providence. Didn't do a lot last year. He's been doing pretty good this year. He's averaging about 16 points. I think he's been in 7 or so games. So, former Knight doing well elsewhere. So, we for all the years, like I remember going to the garage, the old arena, and watching us play really, really good fundamental basketball as a Kirk's jerk, and like hoping we can beat College of Charleston when they were ranked 24th or 25th. And the fact that like year in, year out, and I know the seasons haven't been wonderful, but year in, year out, we are beating top 25 teams each year is just a lot different than when I was in school in the early aughts.
Yeah, I mean, if this continues, I mean, and again, there's, Johnny Dawkins, who knows, everybody knows who's been watching the show for a while, how I felt about him, coming into the season. But I think Adam Hood with Johnny Dawkins is finally starting to pay some dividends, and add the Wash, who was supposedly from his past when we talked about him, is pretty good. I think that sets us up well, especially with the NIL budget increasing and the rev share budget increasing now that we have a full share of our Big 12 monies. So I think all of that's coming together now. If we can sustain that, that's a big deal, because the one thing you said that I think stood out to me from last year's team and previous year's team, when you were talking about Sellers and we talked about some of the other players that were on here, right? We had pieces, we had good pieces, but we didn't have a team. And I think this year we have a team with good pieces in it, if that makes any sense.
100%. And I think it's probably a mix of things. I think we have more NIL dollars this year, so that's a piece of it. And perhaps we have like this George O'Leary, Charlie Taff, rest in peace, situation going on. Remember when O'Leary was here? This is the 2013-2014 season, where O'Leary had this insane defense and always had good offensive principles, but Taft just killed it as an offensive coordinator. And we lost one game to South Carolina where we were winning, and it was literally, we lost a quarter. We lost a quarter of the entire year. It's the third quarter at the South Carolina game. Unfortunately, remember it well. But we lost one quarter.
I was there for that game too. It was super hot.
Yeah, it was wonderful. But we lost one quarter of the entire year. It was a phenomenal year, and the offense was still, even that game, phenomenal. So maybe this is the matching up someone who really knows their stuff and is very defensive minded with someone who can both make the pieces work with the offense and get the offense running in that way too, and having selfless players who are buying into the overall strategy of the entire coaching staff. Because it's obvious we're not getting, again, Keyshawn Hall, phenomenal individual player, but couldn't get the ball out of his hands. And that's just not what's happening now.
Yeah, and I think the piece that you didn't say there was, I do think Chris Wash is making a difference for us, as well as to getting the right players here as well, right? Because last year was kind of the island of misfit toys, and the we just had a story come out. Who's the kid, the IG kid, Mikey Williams. So Mikey Williams was talking about, while he was here, he was, had the legal issues he had going on. He was late on his mortgage payments. He had all this stuff going on, had $0 to his name, and was complaining about eating noodles in college. Well, guess what? Most of us ate ramen noodles in college. And I know you weren't eating noodles in college because you had a meal plan. You could have gone to the Garvey Center at any time you wanted and eaten a lot better than I did in college. That being said, that was that team. They all had their own issues. Dior's kind of come into his own again, where he's at now. So that's the past. If we can sustain what we have going on, I think being in this conference, having a right GM and the offense finally starting to come together, if we can have that consistently, this team's going to be, not just competitive, but can make it be a regular tournament team in this conference. The other thing is, last year we were close to making the tournament as well, but we had a bunch of players basically shut it down with 3 or 4 games left when we were right on the bubble of making it to the tournament. So that speaks to the type of players they were. They were already, Chiem was one of them, Hall, Sellers, all those guys. They were shutting it down when we were on the bubble 3 or 4 weeks out. I don't think this roster would do the same thing. So I think there's a huge difference there too. All right. Last but not least, but always last, let's swivel it one more time.
Swivel one more time.
Yeah, there you go. To a quick update on other UCF sports that Allen does not watch. Allen and Andrew do not watch, and probably Trey too, but that's okay. And he's disappeared off our bubble here for a while. So he totally checked out after halfway through basketball.
Yeah, and I get it. He there could be tons of reasons. He might have some appointment to get to or whatnot or plan for. So let's talk about women's basketball. So When I was looking at the show notes that I created the last time I was on, the women's basketball team was 8-3. They are now 8-6. They lost to Kansas 68-83 at home last Sunday. The team was leading at halftime, and that was a surprise too. We even sent the chat out to the team like, "Hey, if we can pull this off." And then Kansas started pulling away in about the late third quarter. Now we have a road trip double dip. It's the Arizona double dip with 2 more Big 12 games in Tempe, starting versus Arizona State on Wednesday, January 7th at 8:30 p.m. and Saturday, January 10th in Tucson versus Arizona at 4 p.m. Both times are Eastern. Let's see if we can get more than a couple wins in Big 12 play. We'll see. The women's track and field team is actually coming back. We have a couple of other teams that's not just basketball because the spring sports are coming back. Women's track is at the Rod McCravey Invitational on the January 9th. That's in a couple of days if you're watching live, or probably in a day or two when this gets posted. The men's tennis team starts its season, or this part of the season, this coming Sunday, January 11th, at the home of the USTA National Campus, which is also home for UCF men's and women's tennis. There are 2 matches happening that day at 12 p.m. at Florida Gulf Coast University versus Florida Gulf Coast, and at 5 p.m. versus the Raging Cajuns of Louisiana. So Josh will also be playing in a pickleball tournament sometime in 2026, or so he thinks. Look out for any of you 3.0s. Side note, Josh has no idea what his duper score is because he's never actually played in a tournament. I'm just guessing.
All right. And that's the outro music for a reason, because we don't want to hear about, talk about sports that other people don't care about. Is Josh's pickleball.
You would be shocked how many people care about pickleball.
Well, that's fine. I'm just not one of them. So that's okay.
Because you're
but
not
all
good.
you pickleball players, don't be, don't be upset.
This is the short.
At me, right?
This is the short. You are going to get
flamed for my pickleball hate. Okay. All right. Well, just want to say thank you. It's been a great week in UCF sports. Thank you, Allen, for giving us the lowdown on all the football transfers. Obviously, there'll be more on the way. It's great that we have all of these guys coming back. Josh, thank you for helping us out with hoops. It's a great time to be a Knight. Looking forward to seeing what else we fill in. Appreciate all of you guys' comments, your likes, your subscriptions, and make sure to tell all your friends. Go Knights and
charge on.
All right, that was not exciting.
Well, that's all Alan's fault. He's like the anti-Ben Johns of this podcast. And of course, that's a reference you don't get, Roger,